Take a look at today's papers. We're joined now by former Young Victorian of the Year, Thom Woodroofe. Tom, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me back.
What are you focusing on today?
Well, believe it or not, the US midterm elections. But
I'm not surprised.
A little bit back to Australia a little bit later on. So let's go straight there to my old home. I should maybe point out at the start, I've worked for both sides of politics in the US, both Speaker Pelosi or former Speaker Pelosi and outgoing Governor Schwarzenegger. So sort of both sides, so hopefully I can provide some equal coverage there. But let's look at some stories that maybe are overlooked in this. And I want to start with the Australian front page, which shows the main images that are going to come out of this. I mean, if we can do a sort of Mike Bowers analysis of this. The Obama
as long
photo,
as you say back to you, Michael, at the end of it.
No, it's back to you, Barry. But the photo there of Obama is the official White House photo. So I think this to some extent shows how the White House can control the image of Obama following on from this. So he will have since done a press conference in Washington, but this is certainly the photo that is flashed all over the newspapers in the US. And if you look at it quite closely, it shows it's not a loser photo by any means. He's relaxed. He's got his tie undone. He's smiling.
With Boehner.
Exactly. He's on his BlackBerry at the same time. It shows him working hard with the tie. Those sort of things. And the White House, I think, under Obama has been very good at this. Probably as good as it's been since JFK, when he employed a photographer sort of for the first time to cover the first family. So I think it's important to sort of note how they've already sort of tried to maybe control that impression of him not being a loser going forward.
And I'm sorry, just in that, just if we can go back to the front page, a very emotional John Boehner weeping at a key point of his victory speech. Obviously, just a testament to how emotionally draining this experience has been.
Absolutely, and he'll now step into the role of Speaker, which is second in line to the presidency, so a massive role over there.
So did you feel a pang seeing Nancy Pelosi have to step down from that position?
Not particularly. It'd be interesting to see what she does. I mean, she is quite old now, but it was a role that she worked extremely hard in, I must say. And certainly achieved quite a lot. She's a very divisive woman. She's in her 70s.
Right, gee, crikey, she doesn't look it. It's fantastic. And The Age actually has a story on something tangential to this. It's not quite the midterm elections, but it's US politics.
Yeah, The Age has republished a piece that the New York Times published on Tuesday. Now, they published this on their blog at 5:37 p.m. on the day of the midterms. So it would be great to be in the newsroom deciding how they were going to run that story and whether it would affect voting on the West Coast at all. But basically, Bush's memoirs, which are coming out next week. Now, from my memory, I actually thought they were meant to come out before the midterm, so I wonder if there was a date change there. But it basically has the story that Dick Cheney approached Bush in 2003 and said, drop me from the ticket in 2004 because I'm seen as sort of the negative fall guy for this administration. And Bush said, no, I want to keep you on, even though, as he terms it, you're the Darth Vader of the administration. So, look, it may just be a coincidence. It may not sort of impact it at all. It may simply be the publicity cycle and maybe one of the best grabs that comes out of Bush's book. But certainly maybe it might be about trying to restart the whole debate that is taking place about whether Hillary Clinton should switch with Joe Biden, whether she should, in fact, outright challenge Obama for the ticket in 2012. So whether it feeds into that or not, I'm not sure, but I think it would be an interesting debate in the New York Times as to how they were going to release that.
And George Bush's behaviour since leaving the White House has been a very interesting spectacle to watch. He's been very low-key.
I think it's been impeccable,
He's made a few speeches for Republican fundraisers, but otherwise has kept his trap shut. As he says, he has no intention of commenting, even during this book publicity tour, on President Obama's problems or anything to do with US politics.
Look, to be honest, I think he's been absolutely impeccable in his behaviour. I think besides a couple of Republican fundraisers, as you say, he's given two speeches. One was in Canada and one was to a grain conference or something quite strange, with massive speaking fees, obviously. And while he has said he wants to replenish his coffers a bit, and he's been quite outright with that, I think he's been very good at sort of not weighing into the debate too much.
Yes, and you can see that the tide is turning a bit. I saw for the first time today a headline somewhere in the United States, the rehabilitation of George W. Bush begins. And US presidents, no matter what they've done, almost without exception, get rehabilitated in the end.
Yeah, well, look at Nixon
exactly.
before he died. He was an elder statesman of US foreign policy, not the mere criminal that he was in the 1970s.
And he'd be the one person you'd expect not to get rehabilitated. Now, you're looking at a story at the Wall Street Journal as well.
Yeah, very quickly. They've been quite good at focusing on a lot of foreign policy issues, particularly in the region lately. And they've got a piece basically ahead of Obama's visit to the region, to India, Indonesia, South Korea and Japan next week, which basically says not much is going to change with India. But Again, I think it'll show that Obama is going to increasingly focus a bit more overseas now, which is a good thing for people like me interested in the issue. But he'll very quickly be getting out of the country on Friday afternoon, Washington time.
Heads off overseas. I don't know if it's a good idea as the Republicans, sweep into the positions of power for you guys to be saying, I'm out of here for a bit. I'd be hanging around and locking the front door of the White House.
Yeah. Well, this trip was planned months ahead, and they would have known months ago what was coming around the corner. So it's probably a good time to be out.
Yeah. In fact, there was the potentially do a trip to the East Asian Summit, and that's partly why he couldn't, because it was just before the midterms, obviously.
Right.
So.
San Francisco Weekly has drawn your attention as well. Not very many good publications come out of San Francisco, in my view.
Well, I used to live in San Francisco, and I could never get published, actually, in the San Francisco newspapers. But,
I don't think it's a bad thing. I think they're really universally awful.
Look, the San Francisco Weekly, which I must actually admit I'd never read when I was there, does have an interesting story about the sort of votes that do get overlooked under the midterms. And yesterday, it wasn't a public vote, it was the Board of Supervisors. They banned the Happy Meal in San Francisco, which is any meal that isn't accorded to certain nutritional standards, aren't allowed to try and advertise to children with things like toys. So I thought
they haven't banned the meal being sold at all, have they? They've just banned the advertising.
They've taken the toy, but it's effectively become known as the ban of the Happy Meal. And people are racing out now in San Francisco to get Happy Meals, to get the toys.
Of course they are.
People like you who enjoy eBay in Virginia can put it up on eBay and
the last Happy Meal. I can't believe that San Franciscans are rushing out to get the last Happy Meals. They're just not those kind of people, that town, to send their kids off to McDonald's. Interestingly, but while we're there, we should mention that, was it Prop 19? The Proposition 19, the one that was actually proposition that was sponsored out of San Francisco to legalise marijuana, that failed.
Up in smoke.
Yeah, no. That's horrible.
Excuse the pun, yeah.
No, don't even mention it.
Let's bring it back home. The Defence Minister, Stephen Smith, is clamping down on some of his bureaucrats regarding what they can and can't tell the media.
Yeah, the Financial Review's got a piece on how he's instructed the CDF and I think the Departmental Secretary and a few other seniors not to be divisive at all on the Afghanistan issue and stick to what they should be talking about. I brought this in because it's an issue I looked at a while ago, and actually I looked at it compared to the US. And I made the point in a piece that I wrote that I think that in America, they much more involve generals in public debate and their military leaders. And you see that with things like McChrystal last year coming out and saying we need 40,000 troops for Afghanistan, catalysing that debate and putting pressure on Obama. Whereas we don't do that here. And I think the logical follow-on from that is that then those military commanders often seek public office. And I looked at the Congress in the US and I found 23% of them had military experience, 3% here do.
Now, look, we've run out of time, but just very quickly for those who might be interested, go to The Guardian online and you can learn how to say cheese-eating surrender monkeys about the French, in French.
Or you horrible little man, which is my favourite.
Say it for us. Can you say this?
I can't. My French is terrible, Virginia.
See you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.